Have you heard about Hamming code? Well, today we will take you on a tour to introduce you to an invention very crucial, yet amazing in simplicity. Our story begins in Bell Labs in the 40s of the past century, where John Hamming was working on a Bell Model V computer. On weekdays, the machine would work fine, and on the detection of an error would flash lights so that someone would detect the error, and it wasn't capable of correcting errors. Richard grew frustrated as he had to restart the machine on weekends due to these errors. He even mentioned the issue on an interview, as he said, and so I said, "Damn it. If the machine can detect an error, why can't it locate the position of an error and correct it?" So Hamming worked on the issue for years until he published the results of his efforts, now known as Hamming code, in the year 1950. Designed specially for this particular purpose, Hamming code is a method that helps to detect and correct the errors and hence solve the problem at hand. So how does it work? Well, here it is. We use parity bits in a way adjusted properly so that each data bit is covered by a unique combination of parity bits. For example, if we are sending 4 data bits, D1, 2, 3, and 4, then by adding 3 parity bits, B1, 2, and 3, following these equations, we can compose our code. So, by generating these parity bits by both the sender and the receiver and comparing them, we can find out the changed bit. For example, if we find that all the parity bits have different values, this indicates that the change is in the D1's value because this is the bit that can affect all the parity bits together. Same as if we find that P1 and P2 are inverted, we can deduce that the corrupted bit is D2. As you can see, this method works only if one bit is changed and assuming that the parity bits cannot be affected through transmission. And this is not the end, as there are many applications based on Hamming code, and we will talk briefly about 2 of them. The first application will take us to DNA. DNA is a code, and like any code, it consists of instructions, and each instruction is responsible for a trait in the human body. Every person has a unique DNA molecule, which is the reason for several consequences that can be seen in our life. Here are some examples. It gives the police advantage to determine the identity of criminals if any trace of their DNA is left in a crime scene. Secondly, it is why for some diseases there are many medicines, as our bodies respond differently to treatment. And lastly, this is the reason why some people are more likely than others to get certain diseases, as some genes can cause several diseases and can increase the likelihood of us getting others, like Alzheimer. This uniqueness of DNA molecule is caused mainly by the random mixing of the protein of the parents' own DNAs during reproduction, but some variations can be traced to mistakes that occur during the replication of DNA molecules. However, it is comforting to know that there are mechanisms that are successful in preventing most of these mistakes. Now we are going to use Hamming code to create a model to show us how do these mechanisms work and how may an artificially designed mechanism can work in the future. DNA sequences are composed of 4 building blocks called nucleotides A, U, C, and G, which can be modeled as binary codes. Now, each 3 consecutive nucleotides are called codons, and codons have a biological function as they are used to produce protein later on. But there are non-coding parts in the DNA sequence, parts that have no biological function. These non-coding parts can be modeled as parity bits and the coding parts as data bits, so the DNA sequence becomes a sequence of binary bits. Some of them are data bits and some are parity bits. During the process of producing protein, a DNA sequence is sent to a ribosome, a part of the cell in which DNA sequences can be processed into proteins. Our model suggests that during this process, which happens in ribosomes, DNA sequences go through a process of error detection and correction. This work can be built on in the future to invent ways to prevent or correct mistakes that lead to very serious consequences as mentioned, or to discover ways that already work in our bodies at the moment.
So, data hiding is our second application on Hamming code. Judging from its name, it's about hiding data in a media file, like a text, image, or even a video. First, we need to discuss the difference between cryptography and steganography. Cryptography depends on hiding data by corrupting the cover file itself through complicated algorithms, so the receiver knows that there is data hidden inside. On the other hand, steganography depends on hiding the existence of the message itself, so the receiver doesn't know that there is data hidden inside. Data hiding using Hamming code is a steganography application. We can already realize now that data hiding is very important to secure communication, especially in wars, like the German Enigma code used in sending military orders in the World War II. There have been many algorithms with the purpose to hide data in image using Hamming code, such as Hamming +1, Hamming +3, the matrix encoding in 1998 introduced by Professor Crandall, and the topic is still attracting many scientists and researchers. In most of the algorithms, we embed the messages in the least significant bits of the pixel values of the cover image. First, we change the image into grayscale so the color of the pixel doesn't change, but only a slight gray change occurs that can be noticed. In this simulation, we wrote a MATLAB code where we try to hide the same message in more significant bits of the pixel values. As expected, the quality of the image decreases and it becomes more clear that it's a cover image. So, here is the conclusion. Hamming code can also have many applications in other fields, and this needs further research. Thank you.